So let's bring in Monte Poole, NBC Sports Bay Area. Monte, great stuff this week. How do you see this thing playing out? Let's start there. Do you think Kevin Durant at some point becomes available?
I think it's still possible. I was listening to James Jones earlier today, and I was thinking, I go back to 2018-19 season, KD's last season with the Warriors, and how much they did to try and convince him to stay. From the beginning of the season, even before the season, they weren't sure, if he'd be back, but they had a preseason game in Seattle. Now, that was for a couple of reasons. One, Rick Welts was still on the team, and Rick got his NBA start in Seattle. But also, it was like a homecoming for Kevin Durant because that was his first NBA team, the Sonics. And that week, that few days in Seattle, KD was like the man. I mean, he had a lot of ovation, the biggest cheers. The crowd was all about KD, and he enjoyed being the center of attention. And he said before and since that, hey, if there's anything ever going to happen in Seattle, I want to be a part of it. So they feel the love. They gave him love. So that was just one example of the Warriors trying to do whatever they could to sort of satisfy Kevin and try and persuade him to stick around. And then when they had the groundbreaking for Chase Center, Steph wasn't there. Kevin was there. Put on a helmet, had a shovel, the whole nine. They wanted him to be a part of their future. They were pulling out every stop they possibly could to let him know that, hey, we want you here because this thing gone to 3 straight finals, and we think we can do it as long as you're here. But Kevin had other ideas, and that's the thing. In Phoenix right now, they can do all they want, but if Kevin has a different idea, that's going to create a problem if he stays. So that's what needs to unfold. Let's see where that goes and how Kevin feels about whatever gets said in the next few days.
And if he does want to leave, hypothetically, let's just say that he does and he wants out of Phoenix, are the things that drove him away from here still in existence, or is it water under the bridge and you think that KD could let bygones be bygones and be open to a return here?
Yeah, I think that's possible. He and Steph have a good relationship and have always had that, really. And so I think that's one factor. And, to hear James Jones said nobody has really kind of known how to use KD. When I heard that, I was like, whoa, wait a minute.
Right?
No one? It's like they went to 3 straight finals. The 2016-17 team was as much of a machine as I've ever seen in the NBA. And that includes the Jordan Bulls. That includes the Shaq Kobe Lakers. I mean, that team was just a monster. And, they came within one game of a perfect postseason. And so, I think Kevin was pretty much maximized that during that time. So, I think for Kevin, the only question, he doesn't have it. He always says, I don't regret. I don't do regret. And I kind of believe that. But on the other hand, I don't think he's closed-minded to many things. You may recall that he and Draymond had a dispute, very public, in L.A. that season. Everybody saw it, and there was bad blood. But yet, here you are, a few months later, going on a podcast with Draymond to talk about it and to discuss it and the reasons behind it and what could have happened, should have happened. If KD goes on a podcast with Draymond, he could have said, no, I don't want to deal with you, but he didn't say that. And again, Kevin had plenty of time with Steve Kerr when Steve Kerr was on Greg Popovich's staff for Team USA last Olympics. And that was not much of an issue at all. And now you're going to look at this Olympics. You got Kevin, you got Steve, you got Steph. They're all going to be going to Vegas in July for training camp. They're all going to be going to Paris for the Olympics. And so I don't think there's a situation where Kevin will say, no, I don't want to deal with the Warriors. I don't believe that. And when he came back to Chase Center for the first time with fans last season, got a huge ovation, loved every minute of it, expressed his gratitude. I don't think KD would say no just because they're the Warriors.
Monte Poole, NBC Sports Bay Area with us here, Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. Okay, Monte, let's fantasize. Let's say he becomes available. What are the Warriors offering?
Well, they got to start with Andrew and Jonathan Kuminga. That's where it starts, and they got to keep going. And so That's where it gets tricky. You know, people say, well, what about Chris Paul? Well, Chris Paul can't be traded right now. His contract has to be guaranteed before they can trade him. And so that is something that they got to figure out if they want to do that. So that they got to figure out what they want to do about Klay Thompson. So there's some other things that are in play here to figure this out. But if there's a will to get it done, and if Kevin wants it done and the Warriors want it done, I think there is a way to do it. So the question is whether they both sides want to do it, whether he wants it, whether the Suns are willing, because I'm pretty sure the Warriors would be willing to dive right in on that based on everything I've seen and heard, not just in the past few days, but really almost since Kevin left. I mean, Joe Lacob never wanted him to leave. So I believe that, yeah, they can package a deal that would have to include Kuminga because he's young, 21 years old, and you see the upside there. But, you know, you have to start with there and go and keep going from there.
What's your sense of the Warriors' commitment to Jonathan Kuminga? It seems like they like the progress, the third-year leap, and all the rest of it. But then you have the cautionary tale of Jordan Poole, who got the deal and then got dealt. Are they still kind of somewhat on the fence as to whether or not to keep Jonathan, make him unavailable, or possibly ship him?
I think Jonathan is safe unless there's a deal they can't resist. You know, they won't trade Kuminga unless they think that the person coming back to them is an immediate upgrade and someone who can help get back to the finals. I don't see them doing that. I mean, Joe loves JK. They like his progress, and again, and I think in the back of their mind, and that goes for Joe Lacob, that goes for Mike Dunleavy, that goes for the entire front office. In the back of their minds, they're also thinking, okay, if we trade Jonathan and we don't get something we love in return, what have we done with our two chances to kind of, you know, sort of reset the Warriors? We've already traded James Wiseman. You know, it was supposed to be Wiseman. Remember Wiseman, Kuminga, and Moody, the Warriors of the future? Well, if you trade Kuminga now, you're saying, no, the future's gone, which is kind of might be anyway. But the future's gone, and we're going all in now, which if you're going after Kevin Durant, it would make sense. I'm not sure there are many other people that you would look at and say, this is a good deal, a move to make right now. We're going to trade Kuminga and Wiggins and whoever else, you know. So I think Kuminga's situation is pretty safe unless there's a deal that they just can't say no to.
Monty, it's so interesting because the organization does need to think about its future, but then there's also Steph Curry, and the clock is ticking. Does Curry's career and his desires, do they match what's best for the organization right now?
The key phrase there is right now. yeah. I think this offseason is about getting all they can squeeze out of the next 2 years. And that means Steve Kerr, that's his contract, got 2 more years. Steph Curry, 2 more years. You know, so that's what they're looking at. And to do that, to me, that says, okay, you're going after someone who is going to be of immediate help, an immediate impact player right now. Yeah, Kevin's 35 years old, and he'll be 36 in September. But you watch him play, and you see he still got it. You know, he's still very good. You watch Steph play. First half of the season, he was tremendous. Second half of the season, he was below his standard. And you worry about, you know, how much wear and tear that took on him the first half of the season when he was pretty much carrying the load for this team. So I think they are on. I think the Warriors and Steph are in accord in the sense that we got to do all we can to make sure that we're getting the most out of this piece of fruit that we possibly can. You know, and that means for the Warriors, this offseason is crucial, and it's going to be so hard because you see how good Minnesota looks. You see how good OKC looks. You know San Antonio is going to get better. Houston's going to get better. Memphis is going to get healthy. The Denver Nuggets are going to be good. I mean, you got all these other things going, and the Warriors were 10 seed this year, so they're looking to make a big leap next year. You can't do that without making impact moves, and that's what they're trying to do right now. And the question is, which moves will they make? But they are definitely determined to make impact moves.
Where do you see this last season, Monty? Do you see him in Steph's eyes 3 wins away from a 6 seed, or the reality of them being so dreadful against the top 6 that they really were more like a 10 seed fighting to avoid 11?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the latter. When you look at it from with a sober eye, that's what you see. They were dreadful against those guys. they literally, they got worked by almost all of them, and so if you're the Warriors, you look at that, look at all the teams that were above you, and how many of those teams were you honestly, truly superior to? Name one. You won the season series against the Lakers. After that, it's kind of like, well, let's see. No, you didn't win the season series against New Orleans. You didn't win the season series against the Kings. And you lost the season series against most of the other teams above you. And in some cases, you got swept by the other team. So I think if you're the Warriors, you got to say, look, we were a 10 seed this year, and we kind of got what we deserved. We got what we earned. And so, you can look back and say, well, if we'd won this game, if we won that game. No, but you didn't. You didn't. And there were many games which you couldn't say that about. But the bottom line is you came back and you let those other teams get back in the game by playing bad basketball. And that's how you ended up with 46-36 record, which you can say, it's better than the year before, but so was the West by a lot.
Monte Poole, NBC Sports Bay Area, with us here on 95.7 The Game. Monte, obviously, you've talked about Kevin Durant. We've had a lot of conversation about Kevin Durant this week. He's not the only good player in the NBA. Ramona Shelburne mentioned some things about Paul George. Like, how do you see the landscape of what you call impact moves? Who else might be on the table?
Well, Paul George might be on the table. He's a little younger than Kevin. And again, I think the difference between Paul and Kevin, besides the age, is that the Warriors already know how Kevin fits with them. They already know that, and so they've seen it work before. Now, granted, these guys are all older now, but the normal adjustment period that you get when you see a star player come to a new team won't be necessary with Kevin. It's going to take him an hour, 3 hours. When he first came to the Warriors, and back in 2016, it took about 2 months for them to really kind of get a rhythm, and for him and Steph to kind of learn how to play with and off each other. But once they got it, look out. And if Paul George were to, end up with the Warriors, which again, I think, Paul George is probably going to leave. He could leave the Clippers. And if he does, the Warriors would definitely look at him if he's available. But Paul George, you can't, Paul's situation is different from Kevin's. Kevin has a hard contract. Paul does not. So the question is whether Paul wants to bolt. And the Clippers already re-signed Kawhi, so that commitment's already solid. But Paul's commitment is, that's still kind of hazy. And from what I understand, that's hazy on Paul's end as much as their end. So Paul's a possibility. And you hear the LeBron talk too, and the Warriors did sniff around at the trade deadline about LeBron. But, I don't know if that really is going to help the Warriors that much, what he does. LeBron's still great. But on a team with Steph, what you really need is superior guys who can play off Steph. And when LeBron's on your team, everybody plays off LeBron. So it's a little bit different. I'm not saying it's impossible, it can't work. But what I'm saying is that one of the things the Warriors realized this last season is that in today's NBA, you need shooters. And the old championship team of 22 that won with playing two non-shooters and Draymond and Looney, you can't do that anymore. The Warriors realized that early this season. The old 3-out system doesn't work in a league where it's all 5 out and 4 out. And if you have Kevin Durant, he can go out there. He can be a 4 or a 3. Either way, he's got that shooting range to spread the floor. So Paul George, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, these are all big names that could be on the move. But if you're the Warriors, among those three guys, the first guy on your list has got to be KD.
And you have a shooter already on your team in Klay Thompson. What do you think about how you replace him or what it's going to take to maybe keep him? Because if they pay him what they reportedly offered him before, $24 million, wouldn't that take them out of any other possible moves?
Well, it's all about timing, too. It's when you do it, And so, technically, they can technically offer Klay a new deal today. Technically, they can. Now, but I think they still want Klay. I don't know if they're certain that they will be able to keep him. I think Klay wants to check out the market and see what's out there and then make a decision. And that's where the timing comes in. That means you're looking at July. obviously, there's the moratorium period doesn't come until then. But come on, let's not kid ourselves. People talk. People talk, and so we'll see where it goes. But I think in an ideal world, Klay would be with his team next year as the sixth man. I think they realized that his defense isn't what it used to be as point of attack. He was there were 10 guys on the team that had better defensive ratings than Klay did. And that's not the old Klay. Klay can't do what he did 5, 6, 7 years ago. And we all understand why. So, but as a sixth man, I think he could be brilliant.
Monty, can I ask you something from Klay's perspective? We always answer that question from the Warriors' perspective. Why do you think that he is potentially interested in exploring the market?
Well, because going back to last summer, when they couldn't get anything done last summer, he was clearly disappointed by that, and the fact that Draymond got a new deal, last summer. Steve Kerr gets a new deal during the season, and Steph was already set. So if the core is supposed to be me and Steph and Draymond and Steve, how come I'm the only one that didn't get a deal? So I think that's where it starts, and that's why I think Klay is at least curious about wanting to go out there. He's always said he wanted to be a Warrior for life, but that has not been said lately. And I think that means, he's willing to look at what's out there, not saying he wants to leave. He loves it here, but also saying that he thinks he owes it to himself, and he does, to be able to see, okay, what else is out there? Who else might be interested, and what role might I play on a different team?
Monty, great stuff, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
All right, boys, take care. Yeah.